This week, for our 10th episode of On the Couch, we are joined by three men from North Wexford, Castletown trio of John and Mick Carty and Colm Morris. You're very welcome here, lads.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. First of all, the opening question is a similar one every week, so both Mick and Colm can be thinking about it while John answers. What's your earliest memory, GAA memory, or sporting memory even, John?
I suppose we were playing practice matches in school. After school, we used to play in Masterson's Field. Be a big crowd, and we could play for 3 hours of a Sunday. That was our early stage. We had no record league or nothing in the school that time, so we used to play that. And looking at the matches and listening to them on the radio was big excitement. Wexford hurling and playing. It was great excitement in that.
And would those matches in the field have been with neighbours, and obviously they're brothers?
Oh yes, with all of Dick and Des and Bernard and Joe and us too, and with Tommy Masters and big old Muffies from Tara Hill and other lads, all the lads that went to the school that were interested in football, they all turn up for it. But one Sunday we had we were looking at All Ireland that Sunday, and there was no televisions in the country at all, and the neighbours used to come to our house. And this Sunday anyhow, at half time we were out tipping the ball around. The next thing there was a crashed heater of a football straight through the window.
Thanks, John.
And nearly given some of the people a heart attack inside. So that was one of the memories of him as well.
Is that one of your earliest memories then?
It would have been, it was 1964, Galway were playing, I think, Kerry or someone, and Cyril Dunn was the Galway free taker. And I was pretending I was Cyril Dunn, and I put the ball on the ground and went for it. I drove it long way wide, and it hit the stay in the middle of the window. It didn't break one pane of glass, it took 2 panes of glass, completely out of it. The window was destroyed. And I didn't see the second half of the All Ireland because I took to the fields.
You didn't want to be caught at home.
I said, tempers will be on a high, so I decided I'd hide for a while.
And Colm, what's your earliest?
I was born and brought up in Ballyconnew, so I played with the St Patrick's GAA club up to the age of, I'd say, 15, and we moved to the Castletown parish then, the family. So the earliest memory, I'd say, was playing under 12s, I'd imagine, and playing with my brothers. There's 5 boys in our family and a girl, and we would have all played hurling football, so I suppose our championships would have started on the lawn as well, like the lads, and playing with our friends and neighbours. Luckily, when I was under 12, I have a memory I played up in Crow Park before one of the Leinster Championship games, a hurling game for the Wexford under 12s. But it's hard to think back the memory of the game, and all I remember was I got 3 Mars bars for £1 that day. It was something that struck me. But no, we great times at home, and we played all sports on the lawn basically. If it was hurling championship or football championship, that's what we played on the lawn. If there was soccer, FA Cup final, we'd go to the soccer, or Wimbledon for the tennis.
I'll ask John the same in a moment, but Colm, would your family have been what you might call a GAA family, or was it something that you were the first to take on?
No, definitely. My mother played camogie for Buffers Alley, and my father played hurling football for St Pat's as well. Would have represented Wexford over the years. So, but probably my earliest memory would have been going back and following, watching him playing. Different standard of hurling back then, and a lot dirtier, I'd say, those games. Less yellow cards and that, but back then there were the district games, and they would have been playing the local rivals like Ballygarsh, Mellows, Nevena, and they always drew massive crowds into the Gorey area. And I think that's probably something that's missing from the GAA at the moment, is the district and the district rivalries that were there in those championship games.
And John, your family then, in terms of parents or further along, was it traditional in the household to be involved?
Well, it was, yeah. I was steeped in GAA. My father won a county junior championship with Tara Rocks in 1948. And my uncle as well, John Farrell, he was on that team as well. He played, I think, a bit for Wexford as well. So they were really steeped into the GAA, and matches was a big thing on the radio. At that time you'd be listening to them all the time, like.
So the path was obvious enough then, Michael?
Oh, the path was very obvious. Well, we come from a big family, and there are 9 of us. One boy died at a young age, but there was 9 surviving kids, and the 7, Dick and John and Des, they were the trailblazers really, and Bernard and Jerry and Joe and myself, we followed on. So there was always trouble getting the matches. Transport was a major problem at the time. The elder boys would get lifts all right, the young fellas had to sort of fend for themselves, and we had to go and get lifts from different people or whatever. But we went to one match one time with a neighbour of ours down in Castletown. Jim Tackerbury was his name, and it was something like a Leyland van, and we had forums in the van, 2 benches each side of the van. Castletown playing some junior match in Belfield. But at the end of the match anyway, Bernard and I were the 2 youngest ones there, and they all went to the pub. Okay, Cranes in the bottom of Stanish Street and in Carty, and they had their drinks or whatever. Slow going home, people getting sick in the van or whatever. But Biden members, I think they stopped in Fern, stopped in Molan or whatever. But I never went in the van again. So,
You were all day getting home.
well, it was late at night getting home. So.
And who were the main driving forces behind the Castletown club at the time of your youth, we'll say?
I suppose Father Quilter was and all the like lads used to bring us to the underage matches there, Charlie Shaughnessy and Patsy Murray, and go lads, they were looking after the young lads, like, you know. There was always the senior lads helped out, like, you know. But the priests were the main driving force, I think, behind it, like, you know, when we got up a bit farther, like, you know. So we won the under 21 in '68. And it was a straight knockout that time. It wasn't like now. We beat Gusran and Clongeen were united. We beat them after 3 draws. And the 4th draw was played in January in 1969. So, but we won it, and it was a great victory for us, like, you know, to beat Gusran and Clongeen. Then we went the next '69. I captained Wexford under 21 team in '69. Against Wicklow, and there was a flakey in New Ross, and some of the Gusran lads I think had celebrated a bit. That was our story anyhow. We didn't do too well it was played in Gorey, and we didn't do too well against Wicklow. We were beaten anyhow, but so, and then after that it was on into the senior.
Yeah, and Castletown's success in the senior, we must note obviously that in 2022 Castletown rose to the top of the Roll of Honour, and I suppose a great thing for any club to be able to claim, but that all had to start somewhere. And we were just saying beforehand, Mick, that you would have been at the matches, those earliest finals as a youngster.
Yeah, we were at the matches. We all went to the matches. There was great atmosphere around at the time. Castletown appeared in something like 9 county finals from 65 to 71 or 65 with replays and things like that. There was 2 replays in 65. There was the 66. These were against Ballyhogue and Castletown. They were the main rivals at the time, and the matches were very physical. Even I can remember back then they were quite physical. And the Castletown won the second replay in 65, the first championship. You asked John there about the main drivers of the. Basically, there was Father Sean Kidd. He was nearly one of the founding members, Chris Murray, back in the 50s. And that's why Castletown were. Father Kidd is from Galway, the political family now, Tom Kidd and all those, they're TDs. But Father Kidd insisted that maroon jersey.
Right.
And when Father Quilter came in, he was from Kerry. And I think there was a joke, he was trying to change the jersey to the Kerry jersey, it's Kerry colours. But he wasn't allowed anyway. And he became involved with the club, and he was the mainstay for the 60s and early 70s. And priests at that time, they were held in higher respect than they are today, for want of a better term. It's when the priest said something, you went and did it. And nowadays it's a little bit different.
So if a parish like yours was was lucky enough to have a priest as a driving force, that really meant it inevitable then that plenty of people would get behind them and follow through on.
Oh yes,
Exactly. But the problem back then we didn't have any pitch. We were depending on local farmers to give you a pitch to train in, and we trained in different pitches all down through the years. No dressing rooms, no nothing like that. And it was the goodwill of certain farmers in the area. And I think that applied to most clubs actually. They didn't have their own. Nowadays you go down to Castletown, they have pitch down there. It's state of the art. They have state of the art indoor facilities and changing rooms or whatever. That's the way it should be. So it's all the voluntary work that's done by the whole community, fundraising, etc. So, and you were lucky in the sense that you had better facilities than we had.
Yeah,
When
definitely.
So.
You hadn't to tug off in the ditch.
Yeah. I think the lads, like, they mightn't talk too much about themselves maybe, but I suppose they're big leaders in the club themselves. Like, both the lads here have won 6 county medals each, out of our 12 county title wins. And for me, coming in as a player into the club as a young chap, it was trying to replicate what them lads were after doing. That's all we try to do in our club. The likes of the Cartys, the Shottenses, all these families, the Mastersons, the Sunderlands, they're all coming through, and there's generations coming through, and that's what we looked. And even you mentioned the 2022 final, Peter was on the pitch after, and I met the 2 lads and I met their brother Dick, and like I said, this is what they built up down through the years. Do you know what I mean? We're only adding on to what the lads have done, and we hope that continues for many years to come as well.
No, it's amazing in the sense that families especially in the countryside, in Castletown, in most clubs, you have families. We had the Morrises, you had the Cartys, you had the Muffys, you had Mellows, you had the Shottenses, the Merrigans, you have
Maidens.
the Maidens. Maidens are 3 or 4 or 5 guys playing on the team. So it's families, and they gel together and they work together. So.
We've noticed that over the weeks, Laura, haven't we? When we're talking to different people from different clubs, the importance of having the different families.
Yeah. And a lot of the names that you mentioned there are still
Still involved,
active with
yeah.
Castletown.
Yeah, definitely. You see Connor captained the team this year. Connor Carty being nephew of the 2 lads, and Bernard's son, and James Holmes, related to our son, and all these lads, Donica Holmes, they're relations of the lads as well. And hopefully I have 3 boys, and if they continue to play sport, hopefully someday they'll be lifting the trophy out there as well for Castletown.
Yeah,
And John, your first foray into a county final was in 1969.
Yes.
Now, you've mentioned already, before maybe talking about that, we'll just talk a little bit more about Ballyhogue, because they seem to crop up a lot in the history of Castletown. So they obviously had a very strong team at the time.
Oh, very strong, and they were big men as well. They were very physical and great footballers. Dinny Aspel was a great footballer. Patsy Aspel as well.
Pat Lacey.
Pat Lacey from back in.
Phil Wilson, I suppose.
Phil Wilson.
Moriarty's and that.
And Dave Burney went to him as well there. He was in 1973 when we made him. Dave Burney had joined him that time as well, and the English, and the Foleys, Mick Foley and Willie Foley, Joe Foley. But they were a good team, very good team, very strong.
What can you recall then from the 69 win itself?
It's a long time ago. It was great. It was great, and it was great for the club. Well, I was only young that time. I was only 19,
We'd lost the 2 previous finals in 67 and 68, and we were overwhelming favourites to win both.
Yeah.
And in 19...
Against Sarsfields and St Anne's were involved.
St Anne's,
Yeah. But Ballyhogue were very strong, and they disappeared then, which was amazing. They went down, and must have went down after about 74 or 5, and they never came back up. Castletown was very lucky. We thought at the end of our days, it's amazing how the club is still going so strong. That I think them and Sarsfields are the 2 longest senior footballers in Wexford clubs. And I thought, the population was good. You wonder where they come, but they're coming stronger than ever. And I think our win this year was, last year, it was as good as win for me as any of our own wins.
Against all the odds.
Against all the odds, it was against the odds. It was a great win for Castletown. And it was a great win in 73 against Castletown as well. That was the year Andy Merrigan died, we were the underdogs against Ballyhogue. So it was a great win for us.
So it was victories over Ballyhogue in 69, 70, 71 and 73,
No,
was it?
Ballyhogue beat us in 71 and 72.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I'm mixing things up.
But 73 we beat Ballyhogue. Most of those times Ballyhogue, he went to replay.
Yeah.
It's that close.
That close. And then Ballyhogue sort of went off the map. And then you had the likes of Gusharan, Kyle Neon came through there, Gusharan came through, Buntlody. And we beat in 76.
76 of Ratnewer.
Ratnewer.
And then 79 it was the Starlights. And 81 it was Buntlody. Buntlody came on one in 82 there.
But we beat the Starlights after replay as well. So replays. Were you playing against Horswood?
Lost the replay in 2006. Lost in 2006. Yeah.
Our record in replays was very good.
Good at damage back then.
Just when I looked at your wins back over the years, kind of struck me that, you know, from, was it 65
Yeah.
onwards, very much dotted right through to the early 80s. You had 2 in a row wins. Don't think, did you ever win a 3 in a row?
No,
But you were always, you know, it was thereabouts.
Yeah,
It was kind of every second year.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. We won 79 and we were beaten in 80. I don't know who beat us in 80, but we won in 81.
And came back in 81.
Yeah, then Finton's beat us. Then Finton's won the championship in 80. Yeah.
That can show great strength in a club to, you know, I suppose you're winning,
Resilience.
then you lose and you come back. Yeah.
Keep trying.
Keep going.
Sorry, go ahead.
You think more about the ones you lost
Yeah.
than the ones you won as well. Like.
But Colm here was on the under 21. We won 3 Premier under 21s in the
98 to 99, 2000, I think it was.
3 in a row, which is a fair achievement now. And a lot of those would be the nucleus of a team that should have won a championship and didn't. And we didn't win a championship then until
no, like I think it was 30 years since we won a final up to 2010, so it was a massive for our group like to win, because you're always thinking of I had a child that year too, thinking of generations. When are we going to win a county title? We lost in 99 and we lost to Carty and we lost in 2006 after we played at Horswood. So it's hard to get back to the finals as well, and then we got back there in 2010 and gladly we won that. We lost then in 2011 and 12. We won in 2019 and lost then after that again.
I was just going to say about the first one, does it make it, first one for you, Colm, does it make it a little bit sweeter that you beat Kyle and Erin in the finals?
I was thinking the same. I wanted to ask the same question.
There's no doubt about it, does, you know. And,
surely no doubt.
You know, they got us in 1999, and look, they had the Rovers. We couldn't get over them like at that stage, but gladly in 2010, look, it was a team that was better in the final, and that definitely made it all the sweeter, and we did enjoy that victory. The next one then I won, I suppose, was in 2019, and I was 40, so like it's, you know, you have to weigh up beating your arch rivals, and then when you're 40 achieving a county final success was quite good too. And the 3 boys could get to see it. My own lads were marching around that day, but yeah, the sweet success is always beating your arch rivals, and that will be throughout the county and all counties in Ireland, I'd imagine, you know.
Local derbies.
You sort of smiled a little bit when I mentioned Kyle and Erin. Like, there is a great rivalry up there.
Oh, there is, and it's on both sides. One side likes to beat the other. Back in the mid-70s, Kyle and Erin beat us, and we had a very strong team, and they were down in 74, I think it was. 74. And they won out the county championship. And we came back and won in 75. So there is an intense rivalry, a bit similar to Ratnew and Buffers Alley, or Buffers Alley and Owlett, I say, would be something similar, and St. Martin's and Glynn and whatever. We have 2 neighbouring teams, there's bound to be rivalry.
You went to school together and everything, from socialising
like
together.
Off the pitch the lads will get on well, but as soon as the ball is thrown out in that, whether it's Bexford Park or Belfield, wherever it is, the friendliness has gone out, but until the game is over again, you know. And it's hard to know there's so many things that could be asked, but 1981 was the final one of that group of titles, we'll say as such. And was it just a case then that a lot of the players had become older and maybe there just wasn't the replacements for a while to come along, John, or what?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like we were all getting over the top of that stage, and there wasn't that many youngsters coming along. There was a good few lads that retired after the 81 final.
Yeah, it was an old team. The 81 team was an old team. He had Joe Shaughnessy, we miss it, was not to mention Joe. Joe was Mr. Castletown for a number of years. He died there last year, yeah. But Joe and Oliver Cullen and Sean Sheridan, these guys, they were at the end of their careers, and we were looking to win the championship in 81 with them. But we had no underage success. We hadn't featured in any county finals, anything at minor or under 21 since 1968 to 69. We played the juvenile final in 1967, and we played the under 21 in 68, 69, and that was it. So maybe a lot of successful clubs at senior level, maybe we neglected the younger age group. So maybe that was the reason why we had a barren spell in the 80s and early 90s. So.
Yeah, and it does happen. You can see Michelle Milleers won the football final a few years back. It took them that period as well for their players to mature. Even from, they won a lot of minors, Bunclody similar. Some teams do win a lot of underage, and then it mightn't materialise either.
Yes.
Is the other side of it.
Starledge would be a prime example of that. Back in the day, Starledge were very successful at underage level, both hurling and football.
And schools.
And they were very successful. And it took them a long time to make the breakthrough in either hurling or football. But,
Duffery made on through the underage as well, came up together like that, and they had a great success in senior.
Yeah.
The last couple of years have been tough on Castletown for the lads that have lost. We lost some great men. We lost Mick Byrne, Charlie Leonard, Tommy Malloy, a brilliant footballer. Oliver Cullen, another brilliant footballer, and Joe was, as what Michael said, Mr. Castletown. He was a good, hardy footballer, and he was a club man to the heart,
And Charlie died there relatively.
And then Charlie Shaughnessy died there a few weeks ago as well. So there was a big outpouring of sadness over the whole of them,
And just as well to mention, with hurling, with the other half of the club, Liam Mellows, would the focus have ever shifted then once you kind of, I suppose, fell out of that winning way? Did the focus shift ever to kind of hurling, or was it always football?
No. There was a certain amount of equality. When the football was successful, basically we only played hurling after we were beaten in the football, after winning the football. But success breeds success. Lee Mellows was founded in the early 60s, and they won the junior championship in the 60s, and then they won the intermediate championship and went senior.
They won the intermediate in 64.
64, 65 along there. And the same people were playing both. Andy Merrigan and Paddy Lennon and all these guys, and Joe Shaughnessy, Larry Shaughnessy. And they were, they had the fitness levels, and they had a certain amount of skill, and they had the determination, I suppose.
Yes.
It helps. So, but you made a point earlier about the district.
Yes.
I remember going to district matches between Lee Mellows and St. Brendan's of Cran Forward. Oh, ding-dong struggles. Oh dear God, I tell you what. Skin and hair flying, as they used to say. And Lee Mellows, luckily enough, came out on top, and there could have been 3,000 or 4,000 at these matches.
Oh, definitely, yeah. You wouldn't
So
They missed
and it was knockout. If you were beaten, you were gone.
Yeah.
So
There was great atmospheres there in Park Sheikon and Gorey for those games. But I played hurling, the lads played hurling, and hurling was important to me. Winning, you're in a championship, whether it's hurling or football, and it's your club, you want to win it. We were very unlucky not to win the top grade in intermediate before the second grade opened up in the intermediate A in the mid-2000s, and the lads have been very unlucky in the last 2 years, particularly this year, not to win the intermediate A hurling championship. They'll be back, and the split season, whether that's helping teams now a bit more, they can concentrate on hurling and football, and for players will suit a bit more maybe. I'm not sure what way that will work out in the future, but they can prioritise each of them separately, That's the way it is at the moment.
Just to go back a little bit, Mick, to 1973, you had a fairly unique season, we could say.
yeah, it was unique. Yeah, 73, I was in college in Dublin, and UCD, I was in UCD, and UCD I took part in the Dublin Senior Football Championship, and luckily enough, I was only in first year in college, and I got my place on the team, and we made progress, and we got to the county final in Dublin, and we won it. Won the county championship in Dublin, beating St Vincent's, which is one of the strongest clubs in Dublin at that particular time. But also that same year, I was playing with Castletown, and luckily enough, we won the Wexford County Championship. So I had this decision to make whether I play with Castletown or play with UCD in the club championship. The heart ruled ahead at the time, and I decided I decided I'd play with Castletown, because life would have been worth living if I had lined up with UCD against Castletown. We played each other.
Right.
So we played each other in the second round. We beat Kildavin in the first round of the club championship, and then we played UCD in Gorey. And we gave them a good match, beat them by 7 points or something. And UCD went on to win Leinster, and they won the All-Ireland.
Yeah, fairly. Yeah, you were the captain of Castletown that year, I think. Were you in '73? No.
No, I think Dick was, maybe. I'm not sure who the captain was.
Either way, to have to choose which team you were going to play with against each other nearly, it's fairly...
Eugene McGee, who was the manager of UCD at the time, Lord of Mercy, he later managed offer to win the All-Ireland. He came to me, he said, we're going to win this championship. We're going to win because we had the players. UCD had the players. I said, you're making a mistake. I said, I'll have to live with it.
Have to go back to Castletown.
I went back to Castletown anyway, so.
But the following year, you had no such decision to make, because UCD won the Dublin Championship and Castletown didn't win the Wexford Championship.
Yeah, I was captain of UCD the following year, and what do you say, being captain of a college team is different from a captain of a club team. Captain of a college team, you're the boss. You train the team, you're a selector, and you yourself and the vice captain. You see, there's no other. You have only players. You don't. And luckily enough, UGB was involved. He came in, and I stood a little bit aside, and he knew more about football than I did. So I did the training of the team, but he managed the team. Once we went on the pitch, he was the manager. So luckily enough, we won the Dublin Championship again, and we beat St Vincent's again in the final, and we progressed. We won Leinster, and we won the All-Ireland Club.
And you beat Nemo Rangers in the All-Ireland.
We beat Nemo Rangers, a star-studded Nemo Rangers team. They were quite Cork won the All-Ireland, I think in '73, if memory serves me correctly. They beat Galway, and there were quite a number of Cork players on that Nemo team. Billy Morgan, Frank Cogan, and had Seamus Leydon, who won 3 All-Irelands with Galway. He was living in Cork at the time. He was also playing. And a guy called Jimmy Barrett. You were too young to remember all those names. But they were a star-studded Cork team, and we were very lucky to beat them in the All-Ireland final in St Patrick's Day in '74.
And who would have been on the UCD team that would have been... I've been told it's a star-studded team, but for those who don't know...
We had a lot of very good players. We had Pat O'Neill of Dublin, Pat Duggan of Dublin, Eamon O'Donoghue, who was an excellent footballer from Kildare. We had Benny Cochran from Louth, we had J.P. Keane from Mayo, Jackie Walsh and Barry Walsh from Kerry, John O'Keefe from Kerry, Ogie Moore, Kerry. We had, I'm leaving out guys now, they were all into county football. It was all Lady Adge King from Cavan, and we have a guy called Frank Donoghue from Galway. These guys, PJ Halloran, Jerry McEntee, Tony McManus, all these guys. Colm Rook wasn't there, he came on late on to see him, but...
Were you the only Wexford player on it?
I was the only Wexford player on it, yeah.
And I suppose the final thing on that particular club championship victory, you captained the team, the UCD team, to win the All-Ireland Club Championship, and we saw last weekend Kilmacud playing on Glen, and the winner lifted the Andy Merrigan Cup, and you lifted the Andy Merrigan Cup. I
did. It was one of the proudest days I ever had. I played with Andy both at club at county level, and he was killed in a farming accident, and Castletown decided at the time they'd put up the trophy there was no trophy for the All-Ireland Club Championship, and Castletown put up the trophy in the Andy Merrigan Cup, and I received the Andy Merrigan Cup, and the week afterwards I brought the cup to the Merrigan family and left the cup up there for the year. So, just I thought it would be a nice gesture. So,
Great gesture.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And John, you mentioned a little bit earlier about playing underage at Wexford and under 21 and stuff like that. Did you enjoy those days, and what was it like at the time? What was even the organisation or the culture like at the time?
Oh, it was different. I went down to play Clare, I think, in Innes Road, and it was a wet day, and it was the match was, I think, was transferred to Doonbeg or somewhere, not Doon.
Miltown Malbay.
Miltown Malbay, yeah. But we were in the West County Hotel in Innes, and we had a good few pints the night before the match. We won the game 4-1 to 12 points. Clare scored 12 points and 4-1.
Yeah.
So rolled the ball into the goal.
I was there, and I didn't have any pints. I was in leaving cert. I stood in leaving cert, and the night before the match, the boys were, whatever they were doing, I was in the bedroom reading Scott Scale to an Irish book from a leaving cert, and I was, so maybe I'd been better off if I'd went out.
I'm sure it wasn't always the same in
later
years.
I don't know. I scored the last goal in that match.
Were you the only one playing the game without a hangover then?
I know.
I'd say no, there was a few of us had a few drinks like
Oh God, lads.
And
those were the days.
we'll come back to some of those days as well, but Colm, your inter-county career, when would that have started?
In 1999, going into 2000, then we went into there was a round robin tournament at the time, because Wexford were very low down the football ebb at that time, so we would have played the likes of Wicklow, Carl and Longford in a tournament to get the right to play into a quarter final in Leinster, and we won that, and we ended up playing Dublin and Croke Park, and that's where we got a lesson up there that day and got well beaten. And I know it's a big turning point, I think, in for Wexford football of our era anyway, and for the management and the players at that time. The lad's brother Dick would have been involved with his management as well, with Ger Halligan as well and Michal Furlong. So I think they sat down back after that, and and we just see where we needed to be, and things did progress. They brought in different management teams with them as well, and things started to progress after that.
And they progressed reasonably quickly, because it was 2005 when Wexford made the National League Division 1 final. So that from going from that type of being stuck in the bottom of Leinster, we'll say, to making the Division 1 final was a big turnaround.
It was like we
Sorry, no, it was phenomenal what you achieved.
Yeah, it was like we had a great bunch of players there now as well, and committed bunch, and players, good few maybe on the panel at the time, they could have played hurling easily as well. They were very good, skillful hurlers, but I think what happened was, if memory serves me right, is that there was, at the moment, there's 4 divisions in the National League, but I think back then it was similar, and then they put into Division 1, Division 1A, Division 2A and Division 2B, and we were in Division 2B and we got promoted up to 1B. So we kind of skipped a division at the time, and then we ended up playing in Division 1B against top teams, and we played a league semi-final against Tyrone and beat them up in Laois. Dave Fogarty got the winning point, and then went to play Armagh in the league final in 2005. But again, with different management teams up along, and the lads brought in Dom Toomey, and then Pat Rowe came in, and Pat was a serious operator and got the best out of players, very serious motivator as well. And Paul Bealan was in around that time, brought a bit more professionalism after that as well, from being in the Dublin setups. But there were great times, and there were competitive times, which led us into fulfilling better days then, and doing better in the championship. The league was the stepping stone to do well in the championship, and to try and win a Leinster title. Now we were unlucky not to do that. We were there on a couple of occasions. That's the biggest disappointment, is not winning those finals when we were there.
Well, if you were to reflect on those Leinster finals, first of all, obviously a couple of them were a little bit one-sided, but there was one of them quite close.
Yeah, 2011 we say you should have won, but we didn't win, So 2008 we were well beaten by Dublin, but it gave us, I suppose, we had the qualifier system back then as well, so we ended up going to the qualifiers. We beat Down, then Armagh, and on to play Tyrone then the All-Ireland semi-final. Like, they were great days, and like the crowds in Croke Park, and the following for Wexford football started to rise as well, and it gave more belief to the players. And we were unlucky in Tyrone maybe at times in the game. We could have snatched it, but they pulled away at the end. And every championship after those, we seemed to be more competitive. We wanted to play the top teams. We wanted to play them in Grove Park, and that was the belief that was in the squad. 2011, yes, we definitely should have won that. We left it behind us in 2011.
Just to dwell a little bit more on 2008, because an All-Ireland semi-final, it was the first time since 1945 that Wexford had made an All-Ireland semi-final. What was the key to that, or what, like?
I think Jason Ryan was an outstanding manager now. He came in 2008. Clongeen won the county final. He was with them and came on board. An unknown. He was similar age to ourselves at the time with myself, in the 30s, so could still be playing football himself at that time. But he was a great man manager and got the best out of players with different level of study of other teams opposition were playing. Like all other teams, were training 4 or 5 times a week and as a group together. But we could out very easily in the first round of that 2008 championship. We were losing by 10 points to Meath in Carlow with 20 minutes to go. I think that was one of the biggest turnarounds and achievements we had, and we mightn't have been telling any stories about how well we did if we got beaten in that game, you know.
Tell us about that game. How did that game change? Just remind.
We were 10 points down at half time, and a few words were said in the dressing room, probably by myself and a few lads. I was captain at the time. Jason would be, he wouldn't be one for shouting and roaring. He'd be very organised about when he'd come in and to try and get us back into the game. PJ Banville scored a goal and Red Barry got a goal in the second half, brought us back into it. But again, from memory, Anthony Masterson, they scored a goal. Sheridan, what's his? Joe Sheridan scored a goal, which I thought was a fair goal. He's dispossessed Anthony, our clubman, and scored a goal. And Anthony would say it differently, obviously, but the goal was disallowed, which kept us in the game then as well. And look, the lads were phenomenal. The scores they got there, Matty Ford in particular.
Matty
the scores from the wing, left and right, were incredible scores up in Dr. Cullen Park in Carlow.
I remember as maybe a 15 or 16 year old, you would have trained reasonably often in Monagear, so I would have seen a good bit of your training. And the one thing that I can remember quite clearly, there was the 2 pitches in Monagear, and everything was so well organised that I think was nearly, I don't think it was the case for even other inter-county teams at the time. Like, everyone came in, did their warm-up before the training session so that everyone was ready to go at 7 o'clock or whatever, and every little thing just seemed to be that, the standard just seemed to be that much higher. Would you have found that?
It would now. It might have been a few years before that then, you'd been younger again and we were there, but this is back to the lads kind of thing, and we did fitness tests with a different management team, and then we went on the beer after it in Monagear, but that was before the organisation that you're talking about. But that's when you had it wasn't the way you have the pitches developed to have now. When we did laps of I remember just a big drop down, and we were doing those laps of I think they were just fields. I don't think they were actually pitches at the time. But yeah, back then in 2008, Jason had everything organised, coaching for backs and forwards. You know, it was outstanding. Mick Casey then was excellent as well. Actually, he was the physical trainer and physio, and he's back involved with the lads this year, which I'm happy to see. The players have great respect for Mick.
And your inter-county days would have been mainly in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah, it's senior inter-county.
Yeah.
I played minor in '69, and we won the Leinster Minor Championship. The last Wexford team win it in 1969. So I was only a Gossoon at the time. I played in the first 2 matches, and I was a sub in for the rest of the Leinster Championship. But then I progressed to the under 21 team in 1970. And I played 3 years with the under 21s, 3 or 4 years. And then I started playing senior in 1971.
Yeah.
I was 18 at the time, and I played till 1985.
And what can you remember as the highlights of those years as such? Or?
There were very few highlights. We had some very good footballers, but we didn't have the organisation behind us. We had good managers. Father Jackie McCabe managed us there for a time, and Seamus Keevans was very much involved with Wexford football, and he put a fierce work in. But hurling was number 1 at the time in Wexford. Wexford got to the All-Ireland finals in 76 and 77, and hurling was, and we had a lot of footballers who went to play hurling. George O'Connor was, in my opinion, a better footballer than was hurler. We had Billy and Declan Newsom, two Monagear men. They were very good football. Billy Byrne, who won in Ireland in '96, I played with Billy. Billy was as good a footballer as a hurler. I had Martin Storey in school. Martin Storey was a fine athlete, and he could have been a very, very good footballer.
Tom Dempsey, you said?
Tom Dempsey, these guys.
Yeah.
Martin Quigley.
Well, in fairness to Martin Quigley, he tried to do the duel. He played a lot of championship players.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't have played that much in the league because the hurling. But the highlight, you asked the highlight. We played in Carlow, Dublin. The Dublin team won the All Ireland in '76, I think it was. We played them in the championship in '77, and we gave them a very good game. We were beaten something like 4-15 to 3-10 or something like that. It was a Dublin team which was, I say, by far the best Dublin team. They were at their peak.
Yeah.
The likes of Kevin Moore, Brian Mullins, Fran Ryder, all these guys, they were young, they were our age group, and we could have beaten them. If we had had a better approach before the match, we had the professionalism that Colm was talking about. If we had that back then, we could have gone places, but we didn't. We were now Division 2 of the league, and we got a trip to London, and we beat London in the final over there. But we got some shocking defeats as well. I remember we played Offaly, and Offaly were the All-Ireland champions in 1980, I think it was. Big defeat. But we beat Offaly in '77 and we beat Meath in '78, and these were football counties.
Yeah,
so we could have done something.
So when the performance was put in, and on the day you were probably capable of beating as good as the best. Only it was a little bit up and down. Would that be fair to say?
It was up and down, but we didn't have. I'll go back to the word professionalism from the management side of it, even from the county. And I'm not going to critical of the county board, but at that particular time, hurling was number one, and they had preference over what the footballers. So.
But even just a couple of things, you mentioned late Seamus Keevins, we won the league in 2008 when you mentioned that as well, and we dedicated, because Seamus was such a strong football man in the county at the time. But even on that, back to those years as well, the management teams that were involved with us, like hurling was still probably number one at the time, but our management teams would actually call around to the houses, though, some of them hurlers that we thought could be part of the football panel, and even when they were playing hurling or gone out hurling championship, we always welcomed players in, which made it very competitive, and there was no put out by that, about that structure either. And I think the deterioration maybe of football panels at the moment in the weaker counties, that is, there's all these development squads that are there and huge panel numbers that are on county hurling panels at the moment in Wexford, that they're just happy to be part maybe of the panel, but not making a championship appearance, or a league appearance either. But we were lucky at that time that people committed to the football.
And
as well.
Yeah, because you had players in around the 2008, 7 and 10s and all these that would have been capable of being on the hurling panel. The likes of Redmond Barry and the likes of Brian Malone would have been thereabouts as well, and there was a few others. Kieran Ling, of course, yeah. Sure, Matty Ford himself is a top class hurler as well. So.
And like Lee Chin played with us, like Jason would have got him involved to play with us, and obviously he was going to go to hurling then in the long term. He played soccer as well, but hurling is his first love, but Jason was that kind of a character that he wouldn't let anyone go, he'd pester him until he'd keep him involved, and keep him there, and trainings were very competitive then. We had the best players in the county there for those training sessions.
Yeah, and the door was kept open, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
Liam McGovern, another one.
Liam McGovern, yeah.
Rory McCarty was another one back in the day. He was a very good footballer.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know it's probably difficult to talk sometimes about personal accolades, but you were nominated for an All-Star at one stage as well, Mick, or maybe at more than one stage.
I was. Luckily enough, I was nominated on a few occasions. But look, the only good thing to come out of it was the fact that I got a trip with the All-Star trip to America at the time. It was one of the longer ones. I think it went for either 20 days, and we spent time we flew into Chicago. And I spent a few summers in Chicago, so I knew a lot of people there. So it was great going there to Chicago, and then we flew to San Francisco, and then we went to Los Angeles, and we spent about 5 days in each of the cities, and we came back to New York. And it's nice to get something back. So that was the trip of a lifetime for me at that particular stage. So, but the thing about that as well, I was teaching in Dublin at the time. I had to pay my substitute teacher to go off on the All-Star trip. And the money wasn't that plentiful at the time, so it was nearly 4 weeks teaching. So
was that a fixed rate, or was it some negotiation that you had to do with the person that was replacing?
It was negotiated. I got a friend of mine to do it, so I had to give him a few bob anyway. So
I suppose one of the questions, like, you know, I'd like to ask is, you know, what has the GA given you over the years of playing? You know, and I suppose you talk about trips and everything else, but I suppose then there's also the kind of friendships, the connections. You probably know people from all over, from playing inter-county and your club and everything else.
I think it gives you like more in this year. It gives you more opportunities. Like, I was lucky to go to America for 2 summers as well on J1s and play a bit of sport over there and see the world, you know, and because you had that GA background, that you would have been able to go over and play with teams and to look after you, get you work and things like that. That might have been afforded to players at the time, going back into the lads maybe era, but definitely friendships, and we all want to win at the end of the day, you know, and that's what you want, and it's so hard to get to those finals. You'll see if you go back through the records of the best players maybe in the county or clubs that might have won a county title, you know. So I just think that it's important to stay within your club and stick at it and try and get there. That's the aim at the end of the day.
yeah, it's the friendships you make. Basically.
Not enemy as well.
Yeah. We made enough of those in the time, but I think we've mellowed a little bit. But friendships. Sometimes we have a reunion with UCD or whatever, and we'd meet after maybe 20 years or so, and the conversation usually goes, remember the day when, and that starts it off. Remember the day when such and such happened. But it's basically, and if networking is part of it as well, I say that's more now in the modern times down. It's people are doing very well at the GA now, compared to when we were playing. So there's more networking now.
I'm sure for certain players, there's companies queuing up to pay them to video them drinking a certain drink or eating a certain food.
Yes, exactly. There's the opportunity out there.
And we had to pay for our own drink. That was a big problem.
Was it difficult to finish playing, John, or was that decision an easy one for you?
Well, I think it could have been made by other people. I know, I played a little bit after the A1 county final. We played and we got a few beatings, and I played a bit of junior. We were beaten in a junior county final. It could have been a junior B1 by St. Anne's. But it was a little bit difficult maybe to give it up, but you have to face facts. Like, you know, I wasn't a guy that didn't do a terrible amount of training, and maybe I drank too much at times as well. Like, you know, I more have the good time. But the GA was good, great crack when you meet some of the lads. Like, so you meet him now and you speak to you in match here, and you say, "Who the hell was that lad?"
Yeah.
You wouldn't know. Like, you know, you know the face and you couldn't put a name on him.
And would you have ever suffered much with injuries, or were you lucky enough, or what way?
No, I got a bad break in '78. I got a bad break in the leg, and I was playing against the Wexford District actually, and I clashed with George O'Connor, was coming in and I was going out, so we clashed and my leg got broke, and I was on crutches for 18 weeks at the time. It was a bad break, so I put me out for the '79 Starlets game. I know that's why I was disappointed I missed that, but I was lucky enough to be able to make it back then for our next win in A1.
Yeah. Was your decision to stop playing a difficult one?
No, I sort of knew injuries played a part. I tore my cruciate ligament in '77 or '78, and that slowed me down. Even though I played club and the county, but the injuries then, they slow you down. My hips are in a bad way. I have a knee replacement. I need to get my other knee replaced. And when you lose that little bit of speed, it's okay at club, but at county level, if you lose a little bit of speed, it's time to go. And I decided, I was 32 or something in 1985, time to go. And I played a little bit of senior football after that, but I think I gave up completely in about 87. Because I had work to go to down in Carty, and I'd getting out of bed in the morning, pulling yourself out of bed after a match night before, whereas 20 years previously you'd be jumping out of bed.
Yeah.
So it was time to go.
And your decision is that recent, Colm, that you might even reverse it at some stage. But was it a difficult thing for you to decide to do?
Look, it is, yeah, because it's something I've known. I've played senior football now at Castletown for 25 years, and played 2 years at junior as well. You know, wanted to win with the junior team as much as the senior team. So giving up on the social outlet, really, you're coming away from the group now who are going training on a Tuesday and Friday night and going out together maybe to weekend. You're pulling yourself away from all of that. I enjoy training. I was very lucky injury wise. I got an injury in 2013, back operation, and was able to go back through the county, the physios and all that. I was able to go back and tug out that year luckily and get myself back in club action as well, which was important. Still a very hard thing to do, to pull yourself away, but you have to at some stage. And look, maybe I'm lucky to do it now that I'm not going out with an injury. Do you know what I mean? That you haven't got an injury, or that's the reason that you had to stop. And hopefully maybe the hips and the knees are ahead of me or ahead of all of us. But
and you also went out at the top, which
and like it was an amazing victory. The lad said at the start, it's one of the best victories the club will have. To complete other dogs to go out and win in the fashion that they won, you know, and it was an outstanding achievement by the players, and credit has to be given to every one of them that played that day.
Brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant, yeah. Brilliant.
And what do you think you'll miss most about not playing? I know you'll probably still be involved, no doubt, but what do you think you'll miss most about playing? And the lads can tell you what you actually will miss most.
Like even sure, like I went to play, we played a practice match against St. John's here last year, and I was driving down with 3 boys, or 12, 11 and 7, and we're driving down the road and going to the practice match, and I'm 44 years of age, and I'm saying to myself, God, Cody, you'll be 13 next year. It'll only be a couple of years before I'll be driving Cody to these practices. Hopefully, if he wants to play, and Ben and Charlie, you know. So that's what I have to look at. That's what whatever I miss, I'll be seeing in through the lads if they're going to play with the club in underage and see them develop themselves. They're into different sports too. So I'll fill my void with that and trying to see them through their years as well. But won't miss the hard runs or the long runs. But it's time to move on.
Yeah, it would be remiss of me not to say that the family, I was married as well now, I was married in 82, and I had young kids then in 85 and 86 and 87, and sport at certain times can be a little bit selfish. If you go training or whatever, and you're leaving Jean, my wife, at home with kids, young kids and that, and it's a thing that I thought Lee Keegan retired there last week or the week before from Mayo, and he was saying that he had a young family, and he prioritised, and sometimes we had to make those decisions ourselves. Family first, that they say. So.
Yeah, and sure, the lads, and you know from GA as well, a lot of weddings, like poor Adele as well, and my wife, they're all worked around the GA season, you know, and that's
holidays and everything.
And maybe the split season will help that for
Exactly,
the men and the women of the GA world in the future, you know.
And just that you mentioned family, I was reliably informed yesterday, I think. Sometimes when you're from a different club, you don't realise different family connections and what surnames are related to which, but you have 5 nephews who played senior football for Wexford in the championship, which is a pretty remarkable thing to...
Yes. Colin and George and James and Donica.
And Connor.
And Connor.
Don't forget about Connor.
We won't forget about Connor, though.
So the...
I know John's young fella, young John, he played for Wexford.
He did, John.
Yeah,
John, yeah.
and he played minor and under 21 for Wexford.
Yeah.
But
Des would have too.
young Des,
yeah.
Des another a son of Des's.
Yeah.
So, but it's the family connections and the families within the club. I'll go back to that again. The Fitzhenrys made Duffrey, the Fitzhenrys and O'Connors and things, people like that. When you take the Fitzhenrys, they had 5 or 6,
Yeah.
one family.
Yeah.
So it's one tolerant team.
Yeah.
So if you
It really helps along the way,
It does,
particularly if they're all committed. And
yeah, you go back to Buffett Daddy's teams at 78, there's 4 Dons, 3 Butlers,
Yeah.
a few Kennys, the Quigleys and Ratnewer, Quigleys and O'Connors and Ratnewer. So nearly every successful, even St. Martin down there, they have a lot about the Furman brothers and things
Yes,
like that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's whatever it is, it's you have less people organised. You can treat the brothers as one.
One text message.
So
But I suppose each, Peter,
oh.
like brothers that playing together, you know, they're driving each other on. Like one is leading the way, maybe, and then it's up to the next one, maybe, to keep up. And
they can get a little bit himpering with one another as well.
Bit feisty.
We've some of them, yeah.
The final question I have to ask, and maybe Laura has something else, but the final question from me is: was there any other sports other than the GA within your radar that you took up at any stage, John? First of all, no.
No other sport.
I played a good bit of hurling. That's GA hurling.
Yeah.
And some people say I never played hurling, but I played hurling, and then in latter years I played a bit of golf.
Yeah.
Keeps me sane. So
Sane.
Getting out in the fresh air.
Yeah.
So that's my only other
Yeah, I
sport.
played hurling. I loved hurling as well. Played hurling. I played all sports really. I played soccer and rugby. I played soccer with St. Cormac's up close by to yourself, Peter. We won a league there, Division 1.
Same as myself, yeah.
And rugby. But it was something, even in the off season, it was something that I played before we went back county. Myself and Anthony Mass and James Holmes would have played soccer with Gorey Rangers, and they allowed us play, played with them, and then we would have went back county training, and sometimes we played on a little bit further and maybe played matches we shouldn't have played, and won finals after that. But we played rugby then as well. Matty Ford would have played rugby with me in Gorey. Matty was an unbelievable rugby player as well, actually, and probably a player that could have made it any sport. I'd say that he wanted to put his hand to.
You never tried to poach into Castletown, no?
No, he wouldn't be allowed over there. No. I'd say it's not that we wouldn't allow more as well, but he definitely wouldn't be allowed over the road.
I know. I suppose just the final question I would have for you then is just, I suppose, is the future bright for Castletown? Do you think,
there's super work ongoing in the club, and in all clubs I see. Like the underage starts at such a young age now. They start with nurseries up to under 6 fun games, and then they start off with go games, under 8s, 10, 12s, 14s. It's just my lads are that age, and I can see it now. And there's a great number of fixtures for them and matches.
Yeah.
Something that we didn't have, But I still think that it should be cut to the right number of months during the year as well, and let them break off into maybe some of the other sports or music or different things as well. But there's a great amount of variety of hurling and football out there for the kids, and we're lucky with the facilities, with the arena that we have there. Should the weather be bad in the winter time or in February, March of this year now coming up, the young lads can go in and use that facility as well. It's super to have it. A lot of clubs have these AstroTurf pitches as well. Like it's great what the local clubs have done for their communities and how they developed them for the underage.
Yeah.
I think it's great to see the clubs in Wexford. All the clubs have their own facilities now.
Yeah.
Like compared, you take the rugby, you have only about 4 rugby clubs in the whole of the county.
Yes, that's right.
And every club have great facilities now. Their own
Every
pitches,
parish,
maybe
like,
2 pitches
Yes.
as well they have.
Yeah.
The GA is a great that way, like,
And
it's
and-
all local communities working together, voluntary, all voluntary,
yeah.
like.
And
Fundraising.
a lot of it is coming back around as well, like, like yourselves, people are getting back involved. What they've gotten out of GA over the years, I suppose, they're putting it back in whether it's on committees or fundraising or coaching, all of which is important.
Yeah, and you see the numbers they're increasing at every age group, and particularly it's great to see the girls camogie and football there. And when I was playing underage, under 12, I remember playing back to under 12, and Evan Brady would have been playing as one of the best players we would have had on the team, and And that was the way it was done. You played up to under 14s with the boys. Now they kind of stop at under 8s and go their own route, and the girls have enough numbers. So that's why they need the second pitches the lads are talking about and different things, because there's so many numbers there between boys and girls. Which
the
is
women
great.
are doing quite well as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that's a recent enough.
Yeah, they're doing. They've won football. They've done well in the football and in the adults, and the Camogie are doing well now. Neil has taken on the girls there, and they've done well, and they've come up a division there 2 years ago, and hopefully get back up again this year again.
Brilliant. Great to
So,
see.
well, I've certainly really enjoyed listening to you all about Castletown and about Wexford and all the different things. I had to enjoy listening to Mick for many days in the classroom, and it was...
And that was very enjoyable, wasn't it?
It wasn't simple, was it?
Oh, well,
It didn't turn out too badly, so.
No,
it went okay, but really...
just okay.
It wasn't Mick's fault if anything went wrong anyway. But thanks very much, lads, for joining us and on the couch here, and I certainly really enjoyed it. I hope you did too.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks a million.
You're more than
Thanks
welcome.
very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
On the Couch is sponsored by Murphy's Furniture, who've been supporters of Wexford GAA for many years. Murphy's have 2 shops in Wexford, one in Gorey and one in Wexford Town. Along with a huge range of furniture, sofas, beds and mattresses, Murphy's are now launching their carpet and flooring ranges across their 5 shops this December. They also have stores in Carlow, Naas and Dublin. Anthony and Nikki Murphy are proud supporters of Wexford GAA and are delighted to now offer flooring to the people of Wexford